While the world's attention focuses on dramatic frontline battles and territorial gains, Ukraine is fighting an entirely different kind of war, hundreds of kilometers behind enemy lines. This is a conflict most people never see, fought not with tanks and artillery, but with consumer drones and civilian smartphones. It's a war where a college student with a modified hobby drone can inflict more strategic damage than an entire battalion of soldiers. This is the story of Ukraine's systematic campaign to destroy Russia's military logistics network, a shadow war that's rewriting the rules of modern conflict and proving that in the 21st century, the most devastating weapons aren't always the most expensive. Russia's military machine depends on one critical vulnerability that Ukrainian forces have learned to exploit with devastating effectiveness. Every day, hundreds of trains carry fuel, ammunition, and equipment across thousands of kilometers of railway track. These trains represent the lifelines that keep Russian forces operational. Without them, tanks run out of fuel, artillery falls silent, and entire military operations grind to a halt. Ukrainian special operations teams have turned this dependency into Russia's greatest weakness. Using technology that costs less than a used car, small teams operating deep behind enemy lines are systematically strangling the supply networks that Russia's war effort depends on. The mathematics are simple but devastating. A $1,000 drone carrying a $100 explosive can destroy a $10 million fuel shipment. This economic equation has become the foundation of an entirely new form of warfare. When this conflict began, Ukrainian forces relied on traditional sabotage methods that military forces have used for over a century. Special operations teams would infiltrate behind enemy lines, plant explosives on railway tracks, or blow up bridges with conventional charges. These operations required extensive planning, significant risk to human operatives, and often achieved limited results before Russian forces could repair the damage. Russian security forces adapted quickly to these traditional threats. They increased patrols along railway corridors, deployed electronic surveillance systems, and established rapid response teams to counter sabotage operations. The conventional approach was becoming increasingly dangerous and less effective as Russian countermeasures improved. Ukrainian engineers and military planners recognized they needed a completely different approach. Instead of risking human infiltrators, they began experimenting with unmanned systems that could deliver explosives to targets without putting operators at risk. This shift represented more than just a tactical change. It was a fundamental reimagining of how asymmetric warfare could be conducted in the modern era. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Ukrainian teams spent months learning to modify consumer drones, developing new explosive payloads, and creating communication systems that could operate in heavily contested electromagnetic environments. Many early attempts failed, but each failure provided valuable lessons that informed the next iteration of their tactics. What emerged was something unprecedented in military history: highly effective precision strike capabilities built entirely from commercially available components. Ukrainian engineers had essentially democratized precision warfare, proving that devastating military capabilities could be developed outside traditional defense industrial complexes. The drones Ukraine uses for these operations bear little resemblance to the consumer products they started as. Ukrainian engineers have transformed hobby quadcopters into sophisticated weapons platforms through a combination of necessity, ingenuity, and remarkable technical innovation under extreme pressure. Range extension became the first critical modification. Standard consumer drones operate effectively within 10 to 15 kilometers of their operator. For operations deep behind enemy lines, this range was completely inadequate. Ukrainian engineers developed signal amplification systems, relay networks, and communication protocols that extend operational range to over 50 kilometers. These modifications allow operators to remain safely behind friendly lines while conducting strikes far into enemy territory. Payload integration presented the next major challenge. Consumer drones aren't designed to carry explosives while maintaining flight stability and control responsiveness. Ukrainian engineers had to completely redesign mounting systems, recalculate weight distributions, and modify flight control software to accommodate explosive payloads without compromising the drone's ability to reach its target accurately. Perhaps most importantly, Ukrainian engineers have made these drones nearly invisible to detection systems. Radar-absorbing materials reduce electronic signatures, Noise-dampening modifications minimize acoustic detection, and specialized flight profiles keep the drones below radar coverage while approaching targets. These stealth modifications allow Ukrainian drones to penetrate deep into Russian-controlled territory without triggering defensive systems. The real secret weapon in Ukraine's railway war isn't the drones themselves. It's the vast intelligence network that provides the targeting information that makes these strikes possible. Ukrainian operatives have cultivated an extensive network of civilian informants throughout occupied territories, creating an intelligence capability that rivals traditional military reconnaissance systems. This network includes railway workers who provide detailed information about train schedules and cargo manifests. Station employees report on unusual security measures or changes in operational patterns. Local residents observe and report train movements through their communities. The information flows through carefully constructed communication networks designed to protect sources while ensuring rapid information transmission. A railway worker might send a seemingly innocent text message about visiting relatives, but the message actually contains coded information about a fuel train's departure time and destination. Local residents might post social media updates about industrial noise, but these posts actually provide intelligence about unusual train traffic patterns. This network operates under constant threat from Russian security forces. Russian counterintelligence teams have executed dozens of suspected informants and implemented extensive surveillance programs to identify intelligence sources. Despite these threats, the network continues to grow and provide increasingly detailed intelligence that enables Ukrainian strikes. Every Ukrainian drone operation triggers an intense electronic warfare battle that most people never see. Russian forces deploy sophisticated jamming systems specifically designed to neutralize drone threats, while Ukrainian operators develop countermeasures in real time to maintain operational effectiveness. Russian electronic warfare systems attempt to disrupt drone operations through multiple methods. GPS jamming systems broadcast false signals designed to confuse drone navigation systems and cause them to lose their way or crash. Communication jamming targets the radio frequencies used for drone control, attempting to sever the link between operators and their aircraft. Some systems even attempt to hijack drone control systems, taking over Ukrainian drones and turning them against their operators. Ukrainian engineers have developed remarkable countermeasures to these threats. Frequency-hopping communication systems change radio frequencies hundreds of times per second, making it nearly impossible for jamming systems to track and disrupt communications. Mesh networking allows multiple drones to relay signals between each other, creating redundant communication paths that survive individual drone losses or localized jamming. Perhaps most importantly, Ukrainian drones incorporate sophisticated inertial navigation systems that provide guidance capability completely independent of GPS signals. These systems use accelerometers and gyroscopes to track movement and position, creating backup navigation that cannot be jammed or spoofed. Even if Russian forces successfully disrupt GPS signals and communication links, Ukrainian drones can complete their missions using internal navigation systems. The cumulative effect of Ukraine's railway campaign has created cascading problems throughout Russian military operations that extend far beyond the immediate destruction of individual trains. Each successful strike creates ripple effects that impact multiple aspects of Russian military effectiveness. Fuel shortages force Russian commanders to modify tactical plans and limit operational tempo. Artillery units reduce firing rates to conserve ammunition. Mechanized units avoid aggressive maneuvers that consume excessive fuel. Air operations are curtailed to preserve aviation fuel for critical missions. These limitations directly impact battlefield effectiveness and give Ukrainian forces tactical advantages. Supply uncertainty affects operational planning at all levels. Russian commanders must factor potential supply disruptions into their tactical and strategic decision-making processes. Long-term operations become more difficult to plan and execute when supply deliveries are unreliable. This uncertainty forces Russian forces to maintain larger stockpiles, tying up resources that could otherwise be used for offensive operations. Military analysts estimate that Ukrainian railway strikes have reduced Russian logistical capacity by 15 to 20% in some operational sectors. This reduction forces Russia to rely more heavily on truck transport, which is significantly less efficient and more vulnerable to interdiction than rail transport. The shift to truck transport also increases fuel consumption and maintenance requirements, creating additional strain on Russian logistics networks. Behind all the technical innovation and strategic analysis lies a human reality that's often overlooked in discussions of modern warfare. Ukrainian drone operators and intelligence sources risk their lives daily to conduct these operations, often operating under conditions that would be unimaginable to most people. Drone operators work in small teams, often consisting of just 3 or 4 people, operating from concealed positions that might be basements, abandoned buildings, or improvised bunkers. They spend hours monitoring intelligence reports, planning strike operations, and executing missions that can determine the outcome of battles happening hundreds of kilometers away. The psychological pressure is enormous. A single mistake can result in mission failure, loss of expensive equipment, or compromise of their position. Intelligence sources face even greater risks. Railway workers, station employees, and civilian informants operate under constant threat of discovery by Russian security forces. If caught, they face imprisonment, torture, or execution. Russian forces have deployed increasingly sophisticated countermeasures to address the drone threat, but these systems face fundamental limitations that Ukrainian operators have learned to exploit. Counter-drone systems deployed along railway corridors represent the most visible Russian response. These systems include radar arrays designed to detect small drone signatures, electronic warfare platforms for jamming and signal disruption, and kinetic interceptors ranging from traditional anti-aircraft guns to specialized anti-drone missiles. However, comprehensive coverage of Russia's vast railway network is impossible with current technology and available resources. Russian forces have also implemented operational security measures designed to make railway operations less predictable and more difficult to target. Train schedules are changed frequently and shared with fewer personnel. Dummy trains are used to confuse intelligence gathering efforts. High-value shipments are sometimes divided among multiple trains to reduce the impact of successful strikes. Physical security improvements include increased patrols along railway corridors, deployment of additional security personnel at critical infrastructure points, and construction of protective barriers around important railway facilities. However, these measures require significant manpower and resources that must be diverted from other military operations. Despite these countermeasures, Russian vulnerability to drone strikes remains high due to the fundamental characteristics of railway operations. Trains must follow fixed routes, operate on predictable schedules, and pass through numerous potential attack points. The physics of railway operation make it impossible to eliminate all vulnerabilities regardless of the countermeasures deployed. Ukraine's railway campaign represents more than just a successful military operation. It demonstrates how modern conflicts will be fought in the 21st century. The tactics and technologies developed in Ukraine are being studied by military forces worldwide as examples of how small, agile forces can disrupt conventional military operations. The democratization of precision strike capabilities has implications that extend far beyond any single conflict. The technology and expertise required for these operations are becoming increasingly accessible to non-state actors and smaller military forces. This trend suggests that future conflicts will feature more asymmetric warfare capabilities and fewer traditional military advantages. The success of Ukrainian operations has also demonstrated the critical importance of civilian intelligence networks in modern warfare. Future conflicts will likely feature more extensive efforts to cultivate and protect civilian intelligence sources. Ukraine's railway war has proven that in the modern era, victory goes not necessarily to the side with the most tanks or the biggest defense budget, but to the side that can most effectively disrupt enemy operations through innovation, intelligence, and strategic patience. The mathematical reality of this conflict is undeniable. Inexpensive, commercially available technology can inflict strategic damage that rivals or exceeds the capabilities of traditional military systems, costing millions of dollars. This equation has fundamentally altered the calculus of modern warfare and demonstrated that military effectiveness is increasingly determined by creativity and adaptability rather than industrial capacity. The railway war continues as both sides adapt and evolve their tactics. Ukrainian forces develop new technologies and operational methods, while Russian forces deploy increasingly sophisticated countermeasures. This technological arms race represents the future of conflict. The broader implications extend far beyond the current conflict. The tactics pioneered in Ukraine will influence military doctrine worldwide and reshape how nations think about defense and deterrence. The age of high-tech guerrilla warfare has arrived, and it's being written along the railway lines of occupied Ukraine. Every destroyed train brings Ukraine one step closer to victory. But more importantly, every successful operation demonstrates that the future of warfare belongs to those who can most effectively combine human creativity with technological innovation. This is how wars are fought in the 21st century, not just with soldiers and weapons, but with intelligence, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of strategic disruption. If you enjoyed this type of content, please subscribe to stay up to date with similar topics. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one.